Welcome back. Sustainable living, that is a connection for the survival. The health is an indicator for the environment. It is crucial to make the linkage between the health and the health of the environment to avoid the lifestyle transitions. The British medical journal Lancet published a review for the prevalence of a major disease called diabetes in 15 states in India. The study by a group of medical practitioners funded by the Indian Council of Medical Research had worrying those numbers that found while some 7% of people in India, based on 15 states data that had a diabetic, the prevalence of pre-diabetics early sign particularly elevated the blood sugar levels only. It was a staggering of 10 to 15% depending on the criteria has been used. This is not a small health burden on a developing countries. The conclusion that we are undergoing for the epidemiological transition, the states, union territory with higher GDP like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Chandigarh, Delhi all have a higher prevalence of the disease than a smaller state, economically weaker section of the country like Bihar, Jharkhand, Assam, or some northeastern state. The rural areas have the lower diabetes rates than the urban. But the most worryingly, the studies that find that the poor in well-off urban states that have the higher incidence of the diabetics than the rich in the same state, same cities altogether. In other words, we can say the rich in rich cities have started to learn good food habits gradually. They need to implement gradually. But the poor are now falling into the trap of bad food. The study also found that, conversely, it was the more social, economical, advanced rural areas that were falling prey to the diabetes. It is an epidemic that it is in a state of transition with such large number of food in urban areas and such large numbers of the getting rich in rural areas. It can easily get out of those hand. We are going from a lack of food or malnutrition to overnutrition because of the bad food. This is the transition that we must avoid. This fact that the India has only been described as a double burden of those diseases. We have the disease of the poor, everything from the malnutrition to the infectious diseases all around the society, cholera, typhoid, etc. But we also have the disease of the rich, like cancer and diabetes. The health and the policy, the study shows for the prevention of must be kicked in. We all know the non-communicable diseases by the health community are connected to our lifestyle. Then what do we eat? What air do we breathe? And what environment we live in? These are the part of the package of toxic development. The model of those development where we must pollute and then think of cleaning up. The model where we first industrialize those chemicalized the food, eat unhealthy junk, and then think of going to gym or exercise to eat those organic, fresh, healthy food. But the question is, can we not avoid the transition? Can we not go from being poor and but unhealthy to being rich and healthy? Why should we inherit the disease of a lifestyle that can be so easily avoided? It's not easy, but we need to transit from the unhealthy, risky, non-hygienic food to the healthy and fresh, useful, organic food. This is what the change is essential. We need to make those crucial linkage with our health and the health of the environment. Today's polluted air, it is visible in the death of our rivers. Is one of the largest killer of babies in the country. Lack of clean energy in home that makes women cooking on biomass fuel that suffer from a killer respiratory disorders. It's also responsible for the pollution that is making those air toxic to breathe in our cities. So health is an indicator for the environment. United Nations Sustainable Development Goals have set the 13 goals that the world needs to achieve by 2030 must put those children at the very center. Every goal has a link to every child, and every goal has a link to the health of the child simultaneously. So the health of the planet, this is the human phase of the sustainable development goal that would define our progress or not. But as yet, we rarely make those connections. After many years of conferencing, World Health Organization has identified the 4 major risk factors for the NCD, that is alcohol, tobacco, poor diet intake, and lack of physical activity. We now need strong action against food that are high in salt, fat, sugar, and low in nutrition. We also know that economies are built on the use of toxins, so it's work conversely. The richer you get, the higher the health burden and the higher the cost of healthcare. Remember also that it is always easier and far less expensive to deal with the disease of the poor. Cholera, for instance, is about to microbes in water that are easier to clean. Cancer, on the other hand, is about to exposure to the tiny chemicals in the same water. These are more expensive to clean. India has what can only be described as a double burden of diseases. We have the disease of the poor, everything from malnutrition to cholera. But we also have the disease of the rich, cancer and diabetes. ICMR study shows that the poor who can ill afford the disease of the rich, afford the diseases of the rich, can now afflicted by them. But the air pollution, and it is not the WHO that makes this call. The fact is that the institution must confront this reality. The link between the foul environment, the air water pollution, and the garbage or toxin in food and health is also evident that it is crying for the solutions. There is no hiding from this anymore. The good news is that our health is also the only real trigger for the environmental actions. It will act to improve the environment when we know its impact us directly. For instance, today in Delhi there is outrage against the pollution in the air. This is because when there is a public health emergency in winter, then in pollution levels goes out of the control, is spiraled towards a limit. People have come to understand the link between the toxins and the bodies. So people want the change because now there is a link between the environment and their health. It is important and different from the pesticides poisoning to water pollution. This body connection has been harder to establish. Also, unlike in water pollution, we don't connect the dying river to the tap. There is always an option for the installing a household water filter or just buying the bottled water. Air pollution is a great societal leveler. Despite installing the air purifier in their home, the rich in Delhi and other cities that still cannot escape the air condition. The nature of the pollutant is mutating so fast that the air purifier is also home our that cannot keep pace with those deadly poisons. So it is the business to push the changes. Ultimately, if the solution to the air pollution is get off the diesel car and get off the affordable but convenient buses or metros, we will do it because it is our interest. We will change the behavior, not because it's a planet-based interest, but in our the advantage is that it is good for us, it is good for the planet, and ultimate we can defeat the scenario that create those hazards of the environment. Thanks for watching. That's all for now. See you in the next video.